They laughed. They doubted. They dismissed you as invisible, harmless, forgettable. But what they never realized, what they still fail to understand, is that underestimation is not a setback, it's a setup. In the Machiavellian world, being overlooked is a gift disguised as an insult. A weapon few know how to wield, but one that can shatter kingdoms when mastered. This isn't a story of loud revenge or emotional retaliation. It's the blueprint of quiet transformation, built in the shadows. If you've ever been doubted, mocked, or ignored, this is your moment. Because the silent ones don't just rise. They evolve, they outmaneuver, and they become the cold storm no one saw coming. In this strategy of dominance, 5 Machiavellian keys unlock the path. Use underestimation as stealth. Transform in silence. Make absence your psychological weapon. Build legacy over noise. And let their regret be the cage they can't escape. This is not about proving them wrong. It's about becoming so undeniable that their past judgment becomes their present humiliation. Underestimation isn't an insult. It's an opening. It's your cloak. When they laugh, ignore, dismiss, or glance past you like a shadow on the wall, it is not defeat. It's the beginning of a greater war. And you just became the most dangerous player on the board. Because the underestimated individual holds something the loud and arrogant never will, the element of strategic invisibility. Machiavelli would not advise you to defend yourself when they overlook you. No, that's exactly what they expect. They want you to panic, to argue, to prove your worth prematurely, revealing your hand in the process. But the moment you try to fight for recognition, you give away your power. Instead, do the unthinkable, let them believe they're right. Let them assume you're irrelevant. Let them laugh. Because in their arrogance, they create gaps, blind spots. And that's where you begin. Their ego becomes your entry point. Their carelessness becomes your advantage. While they relax, you prepare. While they gloat, you listen. And while they show you their mind, unguarded and unfiltered, you collect every word, every expression, every mistake. Not for petty revenge, but for tactical leverage. Because the underestimated don't need validation, they need vision. And you start seeing through walls. You study the terrain. You analyze the players. You hear the hypocrisy in their voice, the weakness in their claims, the laziness in their preparation. They show you everything because they think you're nothing. And that's the most fatal miscalculation they could ever make. Machiavelli understood this well. The wise man never interrupts the fool who is digging his own grave. The more they speak, the deeper they dig. And you just keep watching, learning, waiting. No need to interrupt. No need to announce your intent. The storm doesn't give a weather report. It just arrives. The beauty of being underestimated is that you're not on their radar. You're free to build, to plan, to move in silence while their backs are turned. And when your time comes, because it will come, you won't need to shout. Your success will echo louder than any insult ever thrown at you. But understand, this transformation isn't instant. It's slow. It's deliberate. It's forged in long hours of work no one applauds, fueled by memories of mockery no one remembers but you. Every smirk they gave, every side comment they made, it all becomes fuel. Not for vengeance, but for discipline, for sharpness, for control. Because this isn't about proving them wrong. That's small thinking. This is about building something so undeniable, so refined, so powerful, that by the time they realize what you've become, it's too late for them to catch up. The underestimated carry a burden and a blessing. The burden is invisibility. The blessing is freedom. They're not watching you, which means you're not bound by their expectations. You get to evolve unseen. You get to become something no one predicted. And when you finally emerge, not with noise, not with fury, but with quiet certainty, the impact will be seismic. That's the art. That's the discipline. That's the Machiavellian response. Don't resist underestimation. Use it. Wear it. Weaponize it. Let it make you invisible today so that tomorrow you can become unforgettable. You rise with intention, not noise. You strike not with rage, but with timing. When underestimated, the greatest mistake would be to react in haste. To defend, to explain, to try and force recognition. Machiavelli would never waste energy on convincing the arrogant. Instead, he would advise the ultimate inversion, withdraw from their noise, and retreat into the fortress of self-evolution. The world expects you to react emotionally. That's what they're trained to seed: anger, bitterness, outbursts. That's why they provoke. But you are not built to entertain their expectations. You are built to quietly demolish them. Machiavelli believed in the power of strategic invisibility, not just hiding from the world, but working so silently, so effectively, that your progress becomes impossible to trace until it's too late to stop. While they waste time bragging and boasting, you refine. You train. You sharpen your skills. You gather knowledge like a surgeon gathers tools. All in silence. This isn't retreat. It's transformation. Not the kind of transformation the world applauds in real time, but the kind that stuns in hindsight. Because when you evolve in public, people criticize. When you evolve in private, they panic. Transformation in silence is about choosing to become unrecognizable by the time they look for you again. They remember the version of you they dismissed. Harmless, forgettable, average. What they don't realize is that that version was temporary, and you were never just standing still. You were building force. But Machiavellian transformation isn't just about becoming better. It's about becoming surgical. The moment you re-emerge, you do not swing blindly. You do not scream for recognition. You do not chase their approval. You target impact with precision. One well-timed move. One undeniable shift in presence. One position they can no longer overlook and cannot access. That's the real power move, not revenge, not retribution, but an unannounced dominance. Your name now appears at the top of rooms they once kept you out of. Your face is now recognized where they thought you'd never belong. And worst of all, it happens without their help, without their blessing, and without their awareness. Machiavelli knew the art of timing. A premature move weakens your position. An emotional strike alerts your enemies. But a calculated action, delivered with calm certainty at the exact moment when they feel safest, That is where fear begins. The beauty of transformation is that it leaves no trail, no need to argue, no need to explain, no need to validate the mockery you endured. Your evolution becomes the proof, and your proof becomes their punishment. They underestimated the silent one, the quiet one, the observer. But that stillness wasn't passivity, it was strategy. The still water runs deep, and what seemed like submission was simply control. So when you finally move, don't move with emotion, move with clarity. Let your presence pierce their illusions. Let your arrival speak what your voice never had to say. Let them realize, too late, that what they once considered harmless was the very thing that would reshape the game. And when they try to adjust, to rewrite history, to find space beside you once again, remain unmoved. Because you didn't evolve to be accepted. You evolved to become untouchable. This is the Machiavellian path. Transform in silence, and strike with such focused precision that no one ever underestimates you again. When you disappear instead of defend, they expect defeat. But you return above them. Machiavelli understood something few ever master. Disappearance is not retreat, it is recalibration. When you are underestimated, mocked, or dismissed, the world expects you to either lash out or crumble. That's the script. That's the trap. And when you don't follow it, when you vanish in silence, the game shifts. Because silence is not surrender. Silence is power under pressure. Absence is not weakness. It is weaponization of uncertainty. In your absence, they lose sight of you. They begin to speculate. First, with amusement. Then, with curiosity. Finally, with anxiety. That silence once mocked becomes unbearable. Machiavelli would call this the psychological chokehold. Not from confrontation, but from calculated distance. You stop being predictable. You stop reacting. You stop appearing in the places they thought they owned. And suddenly, you occupy space not with words, but with mystery. The world has always feared what it cannot understand. And a silent figure who once begged for recognition, now invisible, creates a void. A void that echoes louder than any speech. Because in that void, they begin to wonder, what are they building? Why aren't they seeking approval anymore? Who are they becoming? This is where the transformation becomes terrifying. Not because you've changed loudly, but because you've changed beyond their perception. And now they're no longer laughing. They're watching. From the corners. From behind closed doors. Whispering your name with hesitation. Because now the balance has shifted. Machiavelli taught that true control lies not in how you dominate others directly, but in how you control how they perceive your absence. When you stop showing up, people project their insecurities onto your silence. They start filling in the blanks. They rewrite narratives. They start to panic, not because you're present, but because you're not. And then you return, not loudly, not to explain, not to vindicate. You return higher, sharper, and untouchable. The person they ignored is now operating in a realm they cannot reach. And they don't know how you got there. That's what makes it lethal. Your absence broke their rhythm. Your silence disrupted their sense of superiority. They expected you to disappear in defeat. And instead, you reappear as a force beyond their grasp. The most Machiavellian part. You don't confront them. You offer nothing, no apology, no clarification, no resentment. You let them live in the growing discomfort of their misjudgment. The silence they once dismissed has now become your signature. It's not just absence. It's calculated invisibility, and it makes them question every move they made when they thought you weren't watching. They try to re-enter your orbit, to gauge your progress, to see if there's still a way in. But they find themselves locked out, not by force, but by evolution. The space you once begged to be part of is now beneath you. And your silence, it's no longer passive. It's a mirror, reflecting their arrogance, their miscalculation, their irrelevance. Because Machiavelli knew, to make someone feel powerless, you don't attack them. You make yourself unreachable. That's the ultimate punishment. You become the presence they can't stop thinking about, through an absence they can't understand. So, when they underestimate you, don't argue. Don't chase. Disappear. Work. Rise. And when you return, do so in a way that makes them realize they were never even in the same game. That's not just revenge. That's psychological supremacy. Let your absence haunt them. Let your silence break them. And let your return remind them. You were never beneath them. They were just blind. You don't want revenge. You want control, pace, of your power, of your presence. In a world obsessed with applause, many chase quick wins, hollow praise, and viral moments. But the Machiavellian doesn't move for noise. He moves for structure, for permanence, for legacy. When they underestimated you, it was never about your capabilities. It was about their short-sightedness. Their dismissal didn't define you. It revealed them. And now, as you rise, you are faced with a choice: prove them wrong with spectacle, or render them obsolete through mastery. The first option is emotional. It feels good but fades fast. The second is architectural. It requires patience, discipline, and design. And that is where the Machiavellian thrives in the long game. Building a legacy means you're not just trying to be seen. You're constructing something that cannot be ignored. Something that will outlive every laugh, every insult, every false judgment they ever passed on you. You're not chasing recognition. You're becoming the reference point. This is where control enters. You control the pace. No need to rush to prove your worth. The underestimated are often in a hurry to be validated. But validation is fragile. Control is eternal. So you slow down. You think bigger. You refine every move until it is precise, undeniable, and irreversible. You also control the narrative. You are no longer reacting to their words. You are rewriting the story, not with arguments, but with outcomes. The rooms they once kept you out of now echo with your name. Not because you shouted it, but because your results are too solid to be denied. That's not success. That's transformation turned into architecture. And most importantly, you control your presence. When you walk into a room, it's not charisma that turns heads. It's weight. The weight of built results, the weight of self-earned credibility, the weight of being undeniable. That kind of presence cannot be borrowed, faked, or hurried. It must be built, piece by piece in silence, Machiavelli would advising, let others chase reputation. You build foundations, because popularity fades, trends pass, but systems sustain. While they sought claps, you built processes. While they celebrated noise, you cultivated discipline. Now they look up, and you're above them, not by miracle, but by method. And as you rise, something terrifying happens. For them, you stop looking back. You stop responding. You stop needing them in any form. Because legacy doesn't beg to be recognized. It forces the world to adapt to its presence. And those who mocked you begin to rewrite history to make room for their regret. They start with whispers. I always knew they had something. They follow with stories. We supported them from the beginning. But their eyes betray them. Because the truth is, they see it now. You've become what they never imagined. Not because you wanted to hurt them, but because you chose to build something bigger than their opinion. Success is loud, legacy is silent. Success demands attention, legacy commands it. And when the story is retold, as it always is, they will become the forgotten chapter. The early obstacle, the warning to others. Don't underestimate the quiet ones. They're building something while you're busy laughing. You didn't just succeed. You outgrew them. You outpaced them. You outlasted the noise. And now, the name they once dismissed is the name they cannot escape. That is legacy. That is Machiavellian. They don't fear your anger. They fear your composure. When someone underestimates you, mocks you, or dismisses you, the natural urge is to retaliate, to prove them wrong, to fire back with words or action. But Machiavelli would warn you, do not fall into that trap. Do not give them the gift of your reaction. Let silence, precision, and growth become your response. Because the coldest punishment is not confrontation, it is regret, matured in isolation. You must understand this regret, unlike anger, grows, it festers, it rewrites memory, it haunts. And the longer it lasts, the deeper it carves its message. That's why Machiavellian vengeance doesn't require violence. It doesn't demand speeches or explanations. It thrives in stillness. It thrives when you become so far beyond their reach that even apology becomes irrelevant. When they underestimated you, they weren't just expressing an opinion. They were locking themselves into a limited view of who you were. Now that you've outgrown that view, they're trapped by it. They cannot escape the contrast between who they thought you were and who you've become. That contrast becomes their prison. You see, when you don't retaliate, they're left to fill in the silence. And silence makes people uncomfortable. Why aren't you lashing out? Why aren't you trying to prove yourself? Why do you seem so unaffected? That's when the panic sets in. Quietly. Subtly. They realize they lost something. Not because you took it from them, but because they gave it away when they chose to mock you. Their mistake wasn't just underestimating you. It was disqualifying themselves from any part of your rise. They once had access. Now they stand outside, watching, guessing, regretting. And that's the true Machiavellian reversal. They can no longer harm you. But they also can no longer reach you. The more you grow, the more visible their error becomes. Every success you achieve, every room you enter, every respect you command. It reminds them, not just of what they said or did, but of what they missed. And that sting, that realization, hits harder than any insult you could ever deliver. They try to rewrite history. They say, "I always believed in them." They smile too wide when they see you. They offer late praise dressed as sincerity. But you can see it in their eyes. It's not admiration. It's survival. They're trying to align themselves with your legacy after excluding themselves from your journey. It's too late. That's why you don't give them closure. You give them distance. No retaliation. No inclusion, no explanation. Just the cold. A growing reality that they no longer matter. You're not being cruel. You're being strategic. Because the more composed you remain, the more they unravel. They wonder if you remember what they did. And the most devastating answer: yes, you remember everything. But you've built so far beyond it that even revenge would be a waste of your time. Let that truth sit with them. Let it echo in the spaces they once occupied. Let them see you rise in silence, pass by with calm, lead with stillness. Let their own conscience be the judge and jailer. Because when regret matures in silence, it becomes a cage from which there is no escape. That's the brilliance of the Machiavellian response: no fury, just finality. You are not seeking payback. You are not seeking validation. You are building something they can never touch, and letting them watch it happen. They underestimated you, and now their only role in your story is to watch. Regret is the cage. You are the key. And you never turn back to open it. So now you understand. The coldest response to being underestimated isn't anger, noise, or retaliation. It's precision. It's presence. It's becoming untouchable without ever announcing your ascent. You didn't just survive their doubt. You used it. You wore their arrogance as camouflage. You transformed in silence. You made your absence louder than their noise. And you built not just success, but legacy. And now, as they watch from a distance they created, trapped in the cage of their own regret, you move forward without a glance back. No apology. No explanation. Just the unstoppable proof that their underestimation was the most expensive mistake they ever made. In the end, you didn't rise to prove them wrong. You rose because they were never right. That is the Machiavellian victory. Cold, strategic, eternal.